whether it's love, travel, whether it's the jobs we do, the things that fulfill us. We're all unique. So when people decide to get married, it comes from a romance that develops into love. And that love turns into the idea of spending a lifetime with someone and really having that common goal towards something and really make a stable foundation and a life together. But of course, we all know it doesn't always work out like that. You know, the dream was there and the intention was there. But things change, and maybe perhaps people at this were blinded by their love. They didn't take time to realize that both have different priorities, different dreams and different goals. You know, it's when we fulfill one part of our life, it doesn't necessarily fulfill us. It just fulfills one part of us. But there's so many different parts that need to be complete, really. Otherwise, we're always missing and yearning for something. So I'm going through something right now, and it's complicated, it's frustrating, it's demoralizing at times, to be honest. Because when we think about like what we want, where we want to be, I know what I want, and I know where I want to be. Now, when I discuss it in my personal life, people can't understand it because what I dream is far bigger than most of us will ever attain, and I may never even achieve it. So I've achieved my personal goals, my personal little markers, the things that I guess set me apart in some way, but they haven't propelled me to where I'd like to be. Now, that's not to say that I deserve to be there or that I will ever get there. But what it means is that I'm growing and I'm getting closer, but I'm still so far away. So I've done with my books. I've narrated audiobooks. I've done my web design. And I've done the podcast, and I continue to do these videos. And all of it is sharing parts of me, part of my soul. I'm sort of bearing my soul to the world and trying to just help people. The hope, of course, is one day it leads to an opportunity to continue to expand and grow and explore. You know, because if we start to question what we want in terms of fulfillment and for being proud of ourselves and projects and goals, this is kind of what I want to be doing. This is what I want to be doing. So when other jobs don't work out, it's hard to see how they could work out, you know, because it's not doing this. So when we're looking for jobs, we have to consider what the job is. We have to consider the location. We have to consider the pay. And we have to consider the hours. Yeah. And of course, there's little benefits around that. For the most part, that's what we've got to be considering. So something I've learned through experience, I'm like 40 years old now. Sometimes I forget how old I am. I start going, wait a minute, am I 40? 41? Yeah. Time gets away from us. But because time gets away from us, also it means we don't have as much time as we thought. So we have to make it count. So really, we have to make ourselves happy. Now, many of us get caught up in the loop of thinking money is the most important thing because, of course, money gives us options. And it's an easy barometer to garner how successful we are. We can quantify it. It's easy to quantify by the figures. Money isn't happiness. I left my last job because I wasn't happy, because I was taken for granted. The working conditions really weren't good at all. So many broken promises. So there's no integrity in the position. So it reached a point where it was just untenable for me. I just reached a breaking point. It was like, I can't do this anymore. But the money was better in that industry. The money was better than many. So if money was more important than anything, or it's a good barometer of success, it didn't work with me because it wasn't enough to satisfy me. You know, it's not to say what I'm doing here is the only thing I can do, because I have other skills and I continue in paths that maybe are not my preference, but I can still make it work. So then I've got to consider. So recently I've been considering. There's a few jobs I'm considering at the moment. It's not in this field. I haven't broken free in that way where I can survive and thrive off of what I create through, like, I suppose, media production. through my books, through my audio books, through these videos and podcasts. It doesn't. At the moment, it's not enough to sustain me. I need other sources of income. Well, actually, primary source of income at this point. Doesn't mean the other stuff can't take off in the future, and it doesn't mean I will ever make it secondary. It'll always be my priority because it's what I enjoy doing, it's what I love, it's what I embrace. Whether I see success is irrelevant, really. It's just something that's innate in me. I'd like to see success from it, of course, change my life, make me be doing something I enjoy. But aside from that, I'm considering other jobs. So I've got considering these jobs. Now, one thing I've noticed is the most important thing, and it would seem maybe controversial and debatable, but I think the most important thing is that we do something we enjoy, because we'll end up leaving otherwise. Well, especially me. If I'm not happy, nothing can sustain me. The hours, the location, the money, it's not ever going to be enough. It's never going to be enough. So I've just literally I had an epiphany today. So there's a job I'm considering. The hours are, I like it. It's 4 on 4 off. I like the idea of that. I'm getting fed up with the fact that when we get a weekend, it's only 2 days. It's not enough. 4 on 4 off negates that. The days will be longer, 12-hour shifts. You're free for the other days. But on the other side of that, I like the weekends because I enjoy sports. Like, sports are quite important to me. I like it. It relaxes me. There's not really much sport during the week, so if I've got that time off, yeah, you can do other things, but I will also miss regularly sections of things I enjoy. So I have to consider that. That has to be considered. Money-wise, it's actually more than my previous job, so that's actually, you would argue that it's an upgrade. So the money and the hours I quite like. The job itself, I'm going to obviously see what the job is personally firsthand, and then I'll see whether it's something I want to accept or not, because although the money's good and the hours are better than previously, if the job's no good and it's not something I can see myself enjoying and at least embracing, I don't necessarily have to enjoy it and love it, but you've got to be able to embrace it a bit. If it's something that I think is going to grind on me, then I will have to decline. So it got me thinking, wow, this is like almost in logistics and warehousing, for instance, where I've spent most of my life, because I like working with people, and I like the fact that it's continuous. There's always something to be doing, and I've grown experience and skills from it. So I'm good at what I do. But so of course I'm familiar with the pay structure and and the benefit of that. This job is probably one of the highest I've ever seen in that industry. So it means if I don't take this way, if I were to be offered this and not take it, I probably wouldn't see something like that for a while. So it seems bizarre that I could then turn it down based on the fact that if I don't like if it doesn't feel right. So that got me thinking, like, wow, what a concept. The fact that I could end up doing that. But then I started to realise that I just have to be happy. If I'm happy, then the rest just falls into place. I can earn less, fine. If it's only just survival, I can make peace with that. I can make peace with just surviving if I'm enjoying myself. If it reaches a point where you can go to work and it doesn't feel a drain, it's actually fun to go to work. So the hours you're doing to you is actually fun and enjoyable. I think that is far more rewarding experience than one in which you're forcing yourself to go just for a financial reward where it feels heavy, degrading, demoralizing, stifling, almost like a waste of time. But it provides you a financial incentive, so there's a reward at the end. Because I know from personal experience, especially myself, if I've got money, I like to spend it. I'm getting better, but there's still a habit of spending. So, for instance, I'm a gamer, so if I can put it into gaming context, or I'll put it into other contexts too. Let's say at the end of each month, a job pays well enough that you can have some luxuries. It wasn't a fun month. In fact, every week was a grind. Not for particularly happy. You want change, but you can't fathom. You can't fathom for a moment earning less. It would be a huge step back. So the difference between a job that pays not as much, but you could have fun there, you could enjoy yourself, it could be a great environment. The difference between that one and the good paying job is maybe the price of a PlayStation 5. console, or a treadmill, or a few fancy meals out a month. If you start to break it down into context of what would you spend the money on, it's like, really? You'd keep yourself miserable for a PlayStation 5? You'd keep yourself miserable just to eat out when you can eat in? You'd do it for an exercise bike when you only need one. You don't need that. Exercise equipment isn't even expensive. You don't need the most high-tech gadgets just to be fit. So if you can actually put things into perspective and have a reality check on what actually we need as an essential, you start to realize your essential is your happiness and fulfillment. To be rewarded for it financially, obviously, is a blessing, and it'd be nice, and we deserve that. So if we can find, of course, I think fulfill all the goals, get all these boxes ticked, that'd be beautiful. But that's in an ideal world, and nothing's perfect. So we do have to find the balance. Like I'm saying, from my point of view, I will just be in and out of jobs if I'm not happy. It's just the way it is. So when people look at my CV, for instance, and my work history, they can't understand why most things are like a year maybe. Because by a year I've seen enough, and it's like everything's a disappointment. That's where my frustration comes. It looks like I'm unhinged. It looks like I'm the one not committed. When if people treated me with respect and integrity, they honoured what they promised at the beginning, I would have no reason to leave. If people made work conditions optimal, there'd be no reason to go anywhere, would there? But the problem is, when an employee leaves, they look like the bad egg. They look like the problem. But it's the problem is with the employers, and it's a cultural thing where it's just become so standard. What it is, people are getting management positions and team leader positions and supervisor roles that really have no right to have those roles. They shouldn't be there. They've got no people skills. It drives me crazy working for these type of people. When I meet kind people that respect what you do, that's a completely different league, isn't it? That's what you're looking for. So every time you go to a job, you're hoping to find that people. And you're not, the way I see it, because I'm very outspoken, and obviously I have a certain perspective on life. And to most people, even to my family, I seem maybe considered unhinged, I guess, because of the way I am. I stand up for my rights, my morals, and I'll make drastic decisions that most people are just terrified of doing. But what's important to me is that I stay, authentic to me. But I also want to show my daughter that how most people live is not how you have to live. She has people around her, when they hear that if I leave a job, for instance, that will tell her that, that they'll make it seem like it's a really bad thing. So she then thinks, oh, not again. But I'm trying to teach her that don't keep yourself somewhere in life where you're not respected, where you're not appreciated, and where you're not happy, just because it makes you look different, to walk away and to say, I'm not putting up with this anymore, and I don't care how it makes me look. I would rather show her that. I would rather see her in and out of things until she finds her place, because I think we owe it to ourselves to do that. And I think for too long, we're expected just to accept what we've been given. So you turn up to a job, they've lied about everything. There's going to be job opportunities. You're going to get career progression. There's no progression. As soon as you get in there, you hit a brick wall. Okay, so I'm going to stay here for 10 years now because you've just tricked me into coming. And I don't want to look bad to the rest of the world, especially to my family and people closest to me. I want to show I'm stable. So I'm going to have this toxic life just to show I am stable. How crazy is that? That is absolutely insane. People stay where they feel rewarded. And sadly, it's a cultural thing. We're very rarely rewarded. So we're going to keep pursuing personal growth and development and keep pushing forward to where we want to be. So in my future, I would like to think that I work for myself potentially. That I can do enough that I don't need to rely on going to an external place to work, that would be really nice, and I'd like that, because then I am my own boss, and I haven't got to put up with that. But yeah, if people want to have integrity, then we stay, don't we? Because they're respecting you. But yeah, it has to start with ourselves. We have to sit there and think, what actually do I want? What will make me happy? And now I'm in that situation where I walked away from something that made me absolutely miserable. Every day, I was just looking to when I could leave. So I made peace with the fact that I'm probably going to leave in a year. In the end, I couldn't even wait that long. It was like I've been there a year already. I was going to go wait until next summer to leave because I was like, it means someone else was thinking the same. But in the end, I thought, if you're going to go, stop this torture, stop this mental anguish, keep yourself hostage and prisoner to this situation. It just wasn't a good work environment, and it's only going to get worse. So many things are going to get implemented and changed, and it's not for the better at all. It's a very chaotic working environment, very unbalanced and very unfair. But yeah, I'm not going to go into that. Certainly weren't going to do me any good in the short term or long term. Only financially, which I'm a little stressed because there's a financial burden on me. But it always works out, so I'm not overly stressed. In fact, I'm more relaxed now than I was there. That's crazy, because I'm free. I feel free, and I like to be free. So that's that. But I wanted to talk about something else just quickly as well, because I've often said if the news had the focus on like reporting on positives, miracles in this world, kindness, sharing, positive changes. If it reported on that rather than theft, murder, robbery, all these negatives that just consume the media. It gets so bad in the media that they don't only report these things, they literally are vengeful and attack people for headlines. So even when they haven't got, it's unreal. It's very hard to even pick up the news. I'd do that to people. Go and check the news, whether it's the newspaper, a news app, the news on TV, and see how much content is actually positive. It's shocking. It's shocking. The world is negative because we're making it negative. So with that in mind, I just want to say something else because I don't know if it's a meme, but like a quote came up on the internet, and it said, "Talking about our problem is our greatest addiction. Break the habit. Talk about your joys." Now I love that because that goes hand in hand with what I'm talking about the news, always talking negative. This is saying talk about your joys. Now, I agree with that, but obviously it's not practical. It's not practical and realistic all the time, because if we only talk about, it's a difficult one, isn't it? If we only ever talk about the joys, then we can't get to the core of the problems, But I do believe on the converse to that, if you just talk about your joys, effectively you end up creating, I guess, a better environment where the negatives are in the past. So you could potentially just completely avoid it, I guess, and everyone just try to be happy. But I think negatives will still exist around you because there will always be people trying to bring you down. So I think you do have to, to get to our joy, we're going to have to learn from the past, and we have to heal ourselves before we can get to the joy. But I do think that's powerful in itself, though. So, like, rather than say all the things we're not happy about and the things that frustrate us, we just talk about how our greatness, I guess, and the things that make us happy and bring us joy. And I think the positive for that is, of course, it makes us more compelled to do those things more often. If you say to yourself, "I love being with nature. I like to walk through like a forest and be at peace with nothing stressful to bother me." But then you take a moment and think, when was the last time I was in the forest? But yet you just explain that it's your favourite place and it brings you peace. But we don't even make time for that, And I think that's where we lose sight of reality, really, and our happiness. So, like, you've got to ask the question: if we're not doing the things that make us happy, why are we not doing the things that make us happy? And then when we start to realise our priorities are in the wrong place, because if you say, "I can't because I'm always working," so then the question comes round, and why are you always working? Oh, because I need to pay my bills. I need this and this. Well, let's break it down. How much of that is actually essential? Half the stuff we save for, earn, we don't really need. It's a luxury. But again, it comes down to this PlayStation question, doesn't it? If sort of being with nature, for instance, or just going to the beach or doing any of that is the thing that makes you happy. Why work yourself to death to play on a PlayStation when you're actually happier outside? Now, of course, it's not going to match everybody in that way, but I think it gets to the point quite quick. Is the fact that we're all racing to our death. We're actually racing to our death, probably speeding it up through adding stress we add on our lives, and I think many will get to the end regretful. I think that's the one thing that bothers me the most about people in general. I don't live with regrets. That's why I'm very assertive and take action. When I walk away from a job, I don't sit there and go, "Oh, I shouldn't have done that." I have moments where I contemplate whether I could have waited a little bit longer and been a bit more financially secure with it. But if I felt a need to leave, there was a need. Because we romanticize too much the positives. Because we try to validate to ourselves it wasn't that bad. I think it's the same with relationships, jobs. We'll always pick on the best parts. So you go, I didn't mind that actually. That wasn't so bad, and the money was good, and I loved her or him. It was when we was great. We was great. Okay, that's wonderful. If only life was like that. Now let's think about the reality of what it was like. How often was it good? How good was it when it was good? And now how bad was it when it was bad? How often was it bad? And I think once you start to gather a reality check, you realise, wait a minute, I had to leave. We have to shut these things down so we can start anew. So yeah, I just think it's up to us to push forward really and make ourselves happy, and go after our dreams and goals. It's personal to each of us. But yeah, I think what people think of us and put our decisions is irrelevant. I said something else to people as well. Because obviously I say I can come across as unhinged because I'm very confident in myself. I make decisions most won't. But like I said, I don't regret those decisions when I take them because it's like a reason for it, I'm assertive because I'm pushing towards destiny. But there was a job I left and went back to for a set period, but then I left again. But each time was to focus on my books. Now, the people I was working with thought it was crazy. You're stupid. And then someone else I worked with, he was also writing a book, very early stages. It wasn't going to be a big book. But because there's no immediate success, he started wondering whether it's even worth it. And it's definitely thought my behaviour was a bit erratic. And I said, look, first of all, no one guarantees immediate success. So you've got to get that out of your head. Second of all, it doesn't matter whether something's successful. It's the personal goal and being able to achieve things. But if there was to be success and you continue creating while you're not successful, when eventually you've got an audience, you've got a lot for people to sort of like absorb and buy. So instead of buying one book, maybe they buy 6 books. So that's a good income. So you've created that. It's almost like the tree. You started planting the tree. You're really building it, and then eventually it blossoms and blooms, and then you'll see the reward of that. So what I was saying to people before was, you can stay in this job, and I'll see you maybe in 2 years' time. You never left. You had a stable income for 2 years. Congratulations. Nothing's really changed. It's no different from today. So tomorrow is no different to today. It's just the way that's going to be. And in 20 years' time, it's the same thing. I think it's quite sad. There's no growth. There's no evolution. It's just nothing. It's just like literally your life stands still. But I look a bit unhinged when I leave situations. But yet, in that period, I can leave and come back having wrote a book and published a book. And then I come back and go, I'm in the same situation as you now. Okay, I lost some money for the rest of the year, but now we're earning the same again. But now I have a book too, and it's only after do people see it, because you're saying it at the time, and I look, people judge. And now I've got 6 books. I've got 3 audio books because I haven't recorded audio books for all of them. I didn't see enough progress in the sales really to warrant me putting the effort in, because everything's effort, everything's time and effort. I probably will get round to doing them one day, or maybe I won't. I don't really. It wasn't my priority. My priority was the books, and then I think some people were coming to me saying they have dyslexia and they couldn't read, and that made me create the audiobooks. But because it wasn't really enough attention on the audiobooks, like I said, time. It's not. Is it worth my time to do that? But again, it's something else to explore later. But I'd rather do these podcasts for a minute. It's a bit more. It's different for me. I love writing, but I have periods where I don't really want to write, and when I don't want to write, I'd rather just talk. And again, when I'm writing, I won't be doing this because I'll be too busy writing. So it all comes full circle. But it keeps the year for me interesting. But yeah, like I say, if I could do for a living, it'd be this sort of thing. My books. I'd like to. If I was choosing what I can do, my books, my audio books. Doing these podcasts, maybe do a group session one. I'd like that. Something like a radio. I think that'd be cool. Maybe do some traveling and document that. I think there's avenues we can go and ways we can explore. But we've got to open those doors or wait for them to open, In the meantime, we've got to find our little piece of happiness. And I'm realising more than ever that it's not money. As long as I've got enough to be stable and function, that's enough. So my passions is what I'm creating. And that is always going to be my priority. So all I need really is enough money to sustain that. So that doesn't mean I've really got to make fortunes as a side hustle, if you like, doing a normal everyday job. I need to find something that keeps me energized to be able to do this. Because if I find a job that's going to exhaust the life out of me, but it sort of rewards me financially, that's still going to keep me miserable, isn't it? Because I'm not going to be doing what I want to do. So I think it's up to us to figure that out, really. Because again, it goes full circle when we used the antidote about the being married. Let's say I was married, and you're absolutely in love. You think you've got a common goal towards life. You're going to buy a house. You're going to do all this, but then I want my freedom. And I want to be able to create what I create in, because I don't want to get to the end of my life with a regret that I didn't try and I didn't achieve my goals that meant an awful lot to me. Now, I guess a wife wouldn't want that. They want the stability. They want the consistency. They want what they thought they were signing up for. And I think that's where differences can come in. I think it's for each of us to provide for ourselves, but we have to bear the consequences for good and bad as well. I don't like that I'm unhinged at times. I call it unhinged. I don't think it's unhinged. It's just that I'm just not happy that I get taken for granted, really, and I'm just too strong in myself to allow that to happen. But it makes me financially unstable while others are stable. Of course, I achieve all the other stuff on the side, and I feel vindicated and validated in my decisions. But it's still frustrating when you haven't got what you want as well. It's frustrating when things don't work out. It's just as demoralizing for me as it is for others when it happens, Same with heartbreak, I think when things come to an end, it's not always easy to process. So, for instance, the job could have worked out if there was different management in place. It's run by a bunch of hillbillies. In all honesty, it's inadequate. It's run by people who they should never have been given the role in the first place. But the right people, maybe it could have worked, but it's just rotten the whole way through. So it's just, in my eyes, there's no way to grow in that place. And I always said this because I think there's going to be an accident one day. It's not something I want to go too deeply in. And I said, I don't want to be there when that happens, and I felt strongly about it and I still do. So I'm well out of there. But yeah, I'm just focusing on me now and just doing on what I want to create. I think by balancing everything in our mind of what we want, where do we want to be, how do we want to get there, what is my happiness, why ain't I doing more of the things that make me happy, and then we can start to put the puzzle together and go, okay, so this is the actual puzzle, this is what I want. You can even do a drawing board, I guess. I haven't done that, but maybe even I might start doing something like that. Maybe have a little chart or something to say, look, this is what I enjoy, this is what I enjoy. How often do I do that a year? How often do I do that every month or weeks or something, and start trying to fit that in. And when you realize your life is far too complicated and you can't fit it in, why can't we fit it in? Is a relationship holding us back? Is it family holding us back? Is it a job in a way? Is it our finances are too tight that we can't even do it? Because obviously, you can go full circle one way or the other. Just because money doesn't matter to me, and more about my happiness, my goals, my projects and ambitions, doesn't mean other people are going to be the same or even have that same need. You know, if it's a case of I really want to be able to travel and see the world, I want to go and see the Grand Canyon, you know, I want to go Australia, I want to go and do all this. These are wonderful goals too. They just need money to be able to do it, to put the practical plan in place. So I think a year of pushing yourself just to earn that money, I don't think that's a bad year at all. That's a means to an end, you know. So I'm not anti-work or anti anything really. I just think people should be valued and appreciated more. I think we should all be earning more than we do. You know, the way I'm saying a certain job pays more, I think that should be the standard anyway. It's ridiculous to have to earn less. I don't think it's fair that a lot of people on the breadcrumb, you know, really, really struggling and not rewarded adequately. But yet you expect to just accept, you know. Anyway, so of course there's a lot of things that bother me, but I think when it comes to our happiness, it's really up to us to build it, nurture it, and don't let people destroy it. Because that's the thing, isn't it? We bring the wrong people into our lives, or someone who we think's really encouraging and great, and then they try to take it from you, or they try and block it. That's not a good situation either. But yeah, it's all stemmed really just from me thinking about a job that had maybe 4 options in terms of the hours, the location, the pay, and actually what the job is doing. It got me thinking quite deeply beyond that. I was like, wow, it's a big decision, I think. When you leave a job or leave a situation, most people, of course, leave a situation, they get something before they leave it, which is sensible. I wish I could last that long, but it just reached a point where I just couldn't do it. But again, that's something I've got to cope through. But what I don't want to do is end up making the next decision one I regret. I can take a step back. It's not like it would eat me up. You know, I would just leave and then find something else after. But it seems a waste of an opportunity to have that chapter close, and now I've got a chance for a new chapter, not to prepare myself and think adequately about what I actually want. Because if I can get it right, then I'm building further towards my success. And like I said, my success, I feel, is in the avenue that actually makes me excited. Do you know what I mean? I'm sitting here doing this in my spare time. I was enjoying watching the Ryder Cup golf. I mean, it's amazing. The actual event, it's the first time I've watched it, and I've really got into it like crazy. But sometimes I get a strong urge and a feeling to do something. And when I do, I just do it. And I've took myself away from something I was really enjoying to do something that I enjoy even more. So that shows me that this is actually what I like to do. And I do it for free because I'm literally doing it for free. Yeah, and I think that's the point of when we're doing things we enjoy, and I think that's just more important than chasing the fool's gold, I call it. You know, if it was money caused enough problems for pirates and people in history, I don't think we really need to be caught up in the same dilemmas, because history repeats. You know, people never seem to learn from anything. You hear the stories, you see how people behave, and they still do it. You still do it. You know, I always find it baffling. It's our moral compass and code is just completely skewed. I always say that how much money's enough? How much money's enough to stop doing it, stop chasing? And for some people, I don't think it's ever enough. And you think, why? What did it get you? What did it get you? Even if you had $1 billion, wonderful life. Because the only thing I would love about having $1 billion is the fact that I don't have to worry anymore. But I certainly don't need $1 billion not to worry anymore. But that's kind of like all I want to get to, is a point of not having to worry. You know, so you can just spend money without, you don't even have to be frivolous with it. Just go and buy some things, like just everyday things you need, without having to go, wait a minute, have I got to pay this? What bill's going out? That'd be a nice life. But I think these people that keep trying to accrue more and more money, I mean, it's just like a greedy nature. They haven't found fulfillment in their own life. They've not found anything that makes them actually happy. So they're just, like I said, they're just validating their happiness with the figure of money. What number's higher? And my answer to that is always just go and play with a calculator, you know? What's the point of that life? So I think people just need to find their true calling, really. And I think when you find something you enjoy, or it just makes you really happy, it doesn't even have to be career. It doesn't even have to be goals. Like, I might have projects I like doing. But if I don't want to say simple in nature, but if I was just someone that really didn't care about that sort of stuff, but didn't really have a desire to create or a desire to do anything, but there's a place I truly love. You know, if a place I truly love made me just as fulfilled as what I'm trying to do here and things I create, then that's enough for me anyway. So I would just make sure I go to that place as often. Um, you know, and it's these things that are just more important than money. It really is. The world, the nature of the world is a beautiful place. It's just been consumed and corrupted by humans, really. But you know, the best places are actually free. But sometimes it's harder to get there. But I don't think you need to have $1 billion to enjoy the beauty of this planet. It's just all those meaningless possessions. Not saying a nice thing to have. If you can afford a yacht and you drive, I ain't saying that'd be a horrible thing to be on. But I'm saying, is it really worth giving everything up for these things? Because I can see it. You go on a yacht, for instance. You think it's a great day. This is amazing. You're not going to spend the whole year on a yacht. You know, you're going to get bored. So then that's why these people need all that money, because they're always continuously bored and trying to find something else to do. And it always one-upping. You know, who do you keep? A lot of the things as well is who do you keep company with. You know, if someone has more than you and you're hanging around them, you don't want to be the patsy, do you? So you have to keep doing it to sustain a lifestyle to match others. It's a slippery road to slide. Yeah, I think you got to find your happiness first, and then you can start working on other things. But again, like I said, we all have different goals and dreams. Our happiness is different. Our fulfillment is different. I think when we judge others for the decisions they make, it's lacking an understanding of who they are and why they make that decision. I think sometimes we might think, you know, you could make a wiser choice, but if you feel strongly about it, then who am I to say no? You know, who am I to interfere? But yeah, so it's up to us to find our happiness, I think, and then maybe focus more on our joys, like that quote. Let's just finish on the quote, shall we? Because that was a bleeding good quote. I can't quote it from someone because it was on a social media post from my LinkedIn, and I have no idea because I took a screenshot and it hasn't got the thing on there. And knowing these things, it probably originated somewhere else. Talking about our problems is our greatest addiction. Break the habit. Talk about your joys. Yeah, let's leave it at that. Yeah. Let's start thinking about the things we want to do, where we want to get to, and what give us the most happiness. Yeah, and then I think we start finding that happiness.